welcomed by the guy who's been dubbed the Samurai of Bloodwork, Mr. Dan Garner. He's been around from my research, around a decade in the industry, perfecting his craft within the world of nutrition. He's worked with some incredible high-level athletes, helping them provide, I would say, the more specific nutritional approach they need to make sure that they're performing their, I would say, at their 100%. He's come from humble beginnings to now probably the most sought after nutrition coach in the world. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for the introduction. That's amazing. And thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm obviously super excited, but who dubbed you the Samurai of Bloodwork? Obviously, it's a very fitting title, but that's a very, I would say, unique title to have.
I don't know. So that just kind of started. It was actually, I think there was the Bloodwork Ninja was actually the first one. And then it moved to Bloodwork Samurai. And there's been black belt thrown out there. So it's just like attach any kind of martial art.
Yeah.
any kind of martial art you can to it. And I like all of them. They all apply. And they should all be the nickname. So it should be Dan, Samurai, Ninja, Black Belt, Blood. I want all of them. I don't want one of them.
Just completely change your name to all of them as your middle name.
All of them. And you have to say them every time or else it's disrespectful.
God, could you imagine trying to introduce you to another podcast, being like Dan, the Ninja Samurai, Black Belt?
Yeah.
I wanted to dive
it.
in, one, a little bit about you, and then obviously the path you've taken, because you've taken probably a path not many people think is possible. From the research that I did about you, people thought you were just a gym bro, that was just, trying to give people advice. And then from what I read about Andy Galpin, realized, you weren't just a gym bro. So I decided to have you on, I would say, as part of your, I would say, partnership as well. So tell me how you got into it.
Yeah. I mean, there is no good without the bad, right? Everybody's got some sort of story and it makes the good that much better. So essentially in high school, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So I was one of the kids who absolutely got 50s and 60s in almost every single class. And if I was able to get a 70 in a class, I was like, damn, all right, I got that one. That was like a good one for me. But it was really because I didn't have much like positive guidance or direction or like support in that time period of my life. And I also didn't really know what I wanted to do either. So everything kind of just sounded boring to me. Everything sounded very curriculum based, and I wasn't really inspired or incentivized by anything. And then the whole time though, like kind of like in the background, I started training when I was 14, and I was on forums, I was reading articles, magazines existed back then, so I was doing all of those
You're
things
not
every
that
single
old.
day. Yeah, I'm 35. Do you see these gray hairs right here that I haven't shaved?
You're a spring chicken. You're only 4 years older than me.
Yeah, a spring chicken. I don't know. But that's kind of how the high school rolled out. But I was relentlessly curious about biology even way back then. I don't know if I didn't have the confidence to kind of chase what I wanted at the time. So after high school, I was in a machine shop for about 3 years. But then even in that machine shop, I was doing meal plans and training programs for the guys. And I was absolutely my calling in life. There's no real denying it. It was only me denying it. And then the best thing that happened to me was getting laid off from that machine shop because who knows what would have happened. But it wasn't doing very well. 50% of the employees got laid off, and I was a young buck there. I was a spring chicken there. And I ended up getting laid off so that the older guys could stick around. And I saw it as a second chance at life, and I've never looked back since. I've gone like completely almost obsessive about the process to ensure that I never go back to doing anything that I'm not passionate about again. So after I got laid off / fired, I went right back to college. I took no break after getting laid off, went straight to college. In college, I think I earned 6 certifications on top of the curriculum and was tutoring the year above me at the same time. I was going absolutely mental there, and then took no break after college and joined Gold's Gym as a personal trainer. And even from there, I was a personal trainer 10 plus years ago. And that's nobody really gets into that career for the money. You get into that career because you love it. You've experienced a health transformation for yourself.
Mm.
You know how good the human body is designed to feel. And the only thing you want to do after you felt that is share it with someone else. So you get in the health industry and you start helping people, and things just progress from there. So yeah, I'm working with some amazing people now and doing some really cool things that if you told me 10 years ago, I never would have thought would happen. But that's just where we're at now. It's been a lot of hours, but I couldn't be more grateful.
Yeah, the overnight success is never an overnight success.
No, especially when you go from a machine shop to
Oh
teaching
gosh.
doctors about blood work. It's like that connection, nobody
Who's this
really
guy?
understands. Yeah, nobody understands what goes into making
Mm.
that connection, but I would do it all over again. There's nothing I enjoy more.
What did you study in college?
Physiology. So
Okay, yeah.
physiology, yeah, yeah. So physiology, and I think that that's absolutely the best trait that anybody
Yeah.
could have to truly uncover what's happening
Mm.
with your clients. That's like that happens a bunch on podcasts where I'll go through certain metabolic pathways or certain principles or methods, and it sounds cutting edge to people, but it's been in a textbook for 20 years.
Yeah.
I just have a working knowledge of it. Like
Mm.
if of any of these pathways for protein synthesis or digestion or biochemistry or hematology, these
Mm.
things have existed for quite some time. And the working knowledge of that is the kind of the difference between knowing and understanding. If you have like an online education of reading lots of articles and listening to lots of podcasts, you might know 1,000 things, but
Mm.
you don't always understand the context at which they apply. And a tool is only ever as good as it is applied. The more you understand the physiology of
Mm.
what you're looking at, the better you're able to apply the tools. And that's just really understanding the human body and
Mm.
physiology. So that kind of curriculum, that kind of knowledge base, those kinds of books, that's the number one, in my opinion, the number one skill set a coach can have.
Mm. And when it comes to, we can, I would say, digest a lot of information, but being able to apply the learnings, how, because obviously you work, you give it an incredible brain. What do you do to make sure that the things that you read is actually like embedded in your brain, and therefore you can therefore coach other people?
I'll tell you a weird one that I'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll actually do lectures sometimes in the shower. So I
Yeah,
actually,
interesting.
for
Mm.
real, yeah, yeah. I've done that a million times, and I've done that while the microwave is on. I've done that in the kitchen while something is cooking.
Mm.
There's no better way to learn something than to teach it. So
Mm.
many times, if I've said something on a podcast before, you can bank that I've said that in the kitchen before. a
Mm.
hundred times before I've said it on a podcast because I'll read something. If I read an article, I don't want to go
Yeah.
and then go to Instagram and then go back to my job.
Mm.
That would be me like consuming but not retaining.
Mm.
The way in which I'd retain something is to go talk about it after. And I'm always here. I'm always in my basement. I'm always doing
Mm.
my thing. So I'm gonna talk to the air and I'm
Yeah.
gonna teach the air about the new pathway that I learned. So that's a big thing that I'll do is teach in order to learn.
Mm.
And that's another thing people have talked about in the past about my podcast too, is the ability to communicate something in a way that they understand.
Mm.
And it's because I'm trying to make myself understand it when
Mm.
I'm communicating it. And that's where the analogies come from. That's where all of that stuff
Mm.
comes from. So the retention of that knowledge comes from teaching the air of what's going on. But I am also quite big on setting up certain rituals and rhythms in order to maximize learning, in order to maximize speech preparation, like
Mm.
what we're doing right now.
Mm.
I'm big on environmental optimization. I think that there's a huge there's a huge kind of push right now towards if you require rituals, then you are not resilient.
Mm.
But there's something to be said about environmental optimization. If I work in the same place every single day, why the hell wouldn't I have an optimized ritual towards it? Why wouldn't I have some sort of optimized routine towards it? Because the examples that are thrown around a lot is like, I want to be able to know that I could sleep on a cot for 3 hours and then still be able to do my job. Yeah, but how often are you going to do that?
Yeah.
Could we
An
actually just
outlier of the
create
day.
yeah, yeah. Can we just actually optimize one's environment and routine for the task that you're doing?
Mm.
That seems to make a lot more sense to
Mm.
me. So I actually am quite big on certain rituals and certain routines in order to optimize certain tasks to get a better ROI for my time and energy invested.
I think it's a pretty good note as well, and particularly when people at the moment are now having a more of a remote life, separating their personal obviously from their business. Pretty much the exact same situation. Like I'm in my gym at the moment. I can't train here. Like I have everything that I need, but I find it quite hard to train here because it's not my training environment. I need somewhere that is separate from work, and not many people understand that. Same with like a learning environment. So my partner, he does similar things, but he coaches probably more than I do in terms of regurgitating the stuff that he learns. And he has much more of a brain than myself because he has that platform to then coach. So I completely understand with speaking to the air and how much that actually makes those thought processes an embedded knowledge base. So I'm definitely going to steal that. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. That whole like you
Mm,
have a brain, girl. You have a brain. That's it. That whole speaking to the air thing is because tell myself the same
mm,
message. I came from a machine shop. I don't have a brain. I have to put in that many more hours and that much more repetition in order to earn this thing.
mm,
All of that stuff about people sounding smart or being smart, that's repetition. I truly believe
mm,
that's repetition and preparation.
mm.
And we
Just
can
like
do
training a
that.
muscle, the more that you do it, the stronger it gets.
And what you're more interested in, the more charismatic, intelligent you're going to be about that topic.
Yeah, very much so.
Period.
When it comes to blood work, obviously that's your bread and butter at the moment, and obviously you have a new company about to launch. When it comes to training, or is it not necessarily training, but understanding the blood work for your high end athletes, I know you don't have to share who it is, but I would love to know when you look at a piece of blood work and then you look at the individual, what is something that you've seen and then changed, altered, or implemented to make them perform at that higher level, knowing that at the moment our within ranges does not necessarily mean you're within range for a certain blood work metric. I know that from personal experience, like you're normal, you're fine. Then why do I still feel like shit? So if possible, are you able to provide a bit of an example to help people understand, well, why do I need blood work? What does it actually show you?
First of all, it checks you before it shows you. So a lot of people, when it comes to health and nutrition, they're very morally or emotionally rooted in something. And one thing I've always loved about lab work is that it doesn't give a shit how you feel about the results. That is my favorite thing about it. And like physiology is not a belief system. Physiology is physiology. And so I've always, because of the high pressure situations I've been in, I've gotten A-list actors ready for certain roles. I've gotten UFC fighters ready for world titles. I've gotten people ready for gold medal performances that they've been waiting 4 years to the
Mm,
frickin' day to be able to get that job done. And if I don't do my job, that means I could cost that person not one, not tens, but sometimes $100 million. Like especially for like the baseball contracts, they're enormous. They're huge, especially when you consider lifetime earnings and sponsorships. So if I don't get that job done to the greatest degree of accuracy and specificity and objectiveness, that falls on me. That's my bad. And the way in which I'm able to remove my own bias, because I have the self-awareness to know that I too have a bias, and how I can remove my client's bias is through blood work. So before I talk about what it shows me, it's important for us to bring up that it
mm,
checks me and it checks them, and it keeps us linear and progressive in a way that we control the variables around it rather than it being philosophy driven about what we both enjoy
mm,
doing or what we are currently excited about.
mm,
Now, in terms of blood work, I'm able to gain access on essentially anything in physiology, especially through like a two-step process. Like um, a stool analysis. A stool analysis is something I run on a lot of athletes, but its value is quite localized within the
mm,
gastrointestinal tract. It's very valuable, but it's quite
mm,
localized. Blood work, its value is localized to any organ system that requires a blood supply, which is all of them. That's why you get brain markers, heart markers, kidney markers, liver markers, thyroid, gut. It doesn't matter. The blood is the communication and mailing system for the entire body.
mm,
And because of that, you are able to get objective biometrics on any possible energy leak or performance constraint or health constraint that could be impacting your ability to recover. So when you ask me, what am I looking at when I am looking at blood? I'm looking at an objective way to view your entire body.
Mm,
And when you understand the physiology, this is where the
mm,
understanding comes into play. You understand the physiology underneath that led to those biomarkers that I'm
mm,
looking at from above. That protocol really starts to build itself over time. And then you can start to enhance performance in a big way. Like one of the biggest things that's very common is the symptom of fatigue. You can have a fatigue symptom for a lot of reasons. Fatigue is very umbrella, but when you look at it, blood work, it's not an umbrella anymore. So I can look at blood work very quickly and be like, okay, the sodium to potassium ratio, that is very reflective of one's recovery status and stress status because it's reflective of adrenal output. So you have your adrenal glands that will secrete cortisol in response to any form of stressor, whether
mm,
it's psychological, emotional, environmental, or physiological. We're going to have a stress response, but that is co-secreted with something called aldosterone. Aldosterone, for the context of this conversation, it has two roles. It is going to reabsorb sodium from the kidneys and allow for potassium excretion
mm,
for that homeostatic balance. It's going to reabsorb that sodium because it's still good, but we need homeostatic balance, so we're going to excrete potassium. So when you start to see the opposite take place, you start to
mm.
see sodium not being reabsorbed, and potassium above optimal would be considered 4.5 and
Yeah,
above. This starts to get above, and then especially the sodium to potassium ratio
ratio,
either
yeah.
exceed, yeah, there's the 30 to 35 is where you want to be between sodium and potassium. When you start to exceed either end of that spectrum, you are either in a hypercortisolism state or a hypocortisolism state. A lot of the ways in which I've had to develop, because when I started doing this, there's no one to talk to. I
Yeah.
kind of just had to do it. There wasn't a mentor to learn from to do sports performance-based blood work. That was like, I just had to like start. So a way in which you can do that with high
Mm,
quality literature is to look at medical literature. So
mm,
you're able to identify like, okay, Cushing's disease and Addison's disease are hypocortisolism, which is very low cortisol, or hypercortisolism, which is very high cortisol. So you get these actual pathological states of cortisolism. These are actually the initial diagnostics for those are sodium potassium ratio, but they are out here on what would diagnose disease. But there are performance-based ranges where we can tighten this thing up
mm,
and early detect what's happening with respect to something like overtraining, for example, or too much of a stress load coming in. So I can actually very much find fatigue in the sodium potassium ratio based on what's happening adrenally. I can also look at the cortisol to DHEA sulfate ratio. Cortisol to DHEA sulfate, this is in the serum. I know a lot of people use saliva for this, but serum is more scientifically validated
mm,
for the cortisol to DHA ratio. And it sounds like a weird number, but the data is what the data is. You want to be less than 0.09 when you're doing that division of cortisol into DHEA. If you're less than 0.09, you are in a very good health, recovery, and performance spot. That is like one of the most important ratios. Like we talk about moving big rocks in health in other ways. We talk about getting off your phone, avoiding processed food, exercising, getting in sunlight. Big rocks, like you do this one thing and it'll take care of like 40 other things.
mm,
In the world of labs, the cortisol to DHA sulfate is one of those that is connected to overtraining. It is connected to inflammation. It is connected to the strength of the immune system. It is connected because DHEA is the precursor for testosterone, androstenedione, androstenediol, and then because of that, the entire estrogen family. It's connected to that sex hormone balance. It is your anabolic to catabolic
mm,
ratio. It's so many things. So your fatigue can actually hide in there. Beyond this, I can look at your immunology on your labs. I could lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are deeply connected to viral load, especially when they start to get higher than 35%, and certainly when they start to get higher than 40%. And if the ratio is less than 2 to 1 between neutrophils and lymphocytes, you're leaning towards someone who has some form of viral load. Number one symptom of viruses is fatigue.
mm.
The examples could continue, but those are like three big things. And You can also identify B vitamin status and iron status, which would reflect anemia or subclinical states of anemia, which still lead to fatigue on the arena of sports performance. Like these examples go on forever. We're just talking about one symptom. But when I get that one symptom from that person, there's a saying in chess, great moves come from great positions. When I get one symptom, but then I get an objective position to base my protocol design from, I know what they need solved. And now I know how to solve it in the most objective way possible. And when we can do that, I build a protocol based on my biochemical source of the identification of that fatigue. And when that athlete does that, they feel better with me within like 2 weeks because they're getting maximum ROI per unit of time and energy invested into their protocol because we're doing the right thing the first time and not through trial and error. So that's a very long-winded answer, but shockingly very short-winded answer on
that's not long. Like that can go on
no
forever.
forever. Fatigue and blood work goes on forever, and when you overcome that, it's huge. It is. You can improve anybody's life. Like I'll just add one more thing here. Like energy is the seed of life. It is. If I want to be a better dad, I'm gonna need more energy to play with my kid. If I want to be better in the gym, I'm going to need more energy to have better workouts. If I want to be better at my job, I'm going to need more energy to be more productive at work. So when I solve that fatigue problem for them, life as a whole gets better. If you're a CEO, an actor, or an athlete, when I identify the root cause of your fatigue, blood sugar could actually be another one we could talk about for many hours. That'd be another one. When I identify that and correct that, that person's better within a week. They're better right away. And then confidence builds, performance goes up. Everything's moving in the right direction for us. Blood is that powerful.
And in those instances, are those results within ranges, but the ratio is obviously not optimal? So in other words, because I know a lot of people go to the doctors, they're given like, hey, everything is normal or within range. In most, or I say some of those occasions, can things be within range, but obviously not at the right ratio, as you just mentioned there?
For sure. Yeah. So I'll ask you a question. Could it be within range and not healthy?
Possibly. Like I know so, because I had my ratio balance between copper and zinc was off, and that's part of my hormonal issues that was never picked up. It's just go and eat more steak or whatever it was that I was told to do. And it wasn't until I found a guy, a friend in Melbourne, who is like, actually, these are normal, but they're not talking to each other. Like the ratio isn't to what they should be. So we started to do things to help improve that. And so like go have some more zinc. It's like, well, actually, zinc's gonna fuck everything up if I have more of it, because that ratio is gonna be even worse.
Yeah. No, the ratio. So that goes for everything, by the way. Like a ratio could be within range, but not optimized. A biomarker can be within range and not optimized. Like blood glucose is a real easy one, right? The typical range usually goes from 70 to 100. But for every 1 point above 85, it's been demonstrated to increase your risk for type 2 diabetes within the next decade by 6%. So that means I could have a fasting glucose of 95, be at a 60% increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes over the next decade, but be within the normal range. Also, again, after 85, it actually becomes a cardiovascular risk marker. So glucose is typically only ever seen as this thing that's like a risk of type 2 diabetes and like maybe oxidative stress and inflammation. Some people tie it to some certain common known things, but it becomes a cardiovascular actual death, like mortality marker after 85. And then after 95, it's been connected to retinopathy. So that's actually the degradation of your macular tissue in your eyes. So we can have
why is it at 100 then? Like, why is it within the range? That's crazy.
It is definitely crazy. And this is, by the way, also between 91 and 99, it is an independent predictor of type 2 diabetes. So that's independent of what your insulin was, independent of C-peptide, independent of your BMI, independent of it becomes an independent predictor at between 91 and 99. So it's kind of like over the course of my career, I was just like, we can do better.
Mm,
We can do better. Right now, we're doing a phenomenal job at
mm,
identifying states of disease and infection.
mm,
Phenomenal. But we're not doing a phenomenal job at helping people become the
mm,
best version of themselves,
mm,
and helping people in a way where we are acting preventatively rather than reactively.
mm,
Because you open the podcast in a way where someone could show up and have symptoms and be told they're fine.
mhm.
And then you're like, no, this is why I'm here, man.
Yeah.
I have symptoms. Can
Mm,
somebody help me? Can somebody listen to me? It's like, nah, you're
yeah.
good. Go take an Advil.
Literally,
It's probably anxiety.
yeah, a good 12
Yeah,
months of my life was like, you're fine. Like, well, I'm fucking not. Like, none of my
right.
things exist. My neutrophils are
Mhm.
tanked. Oh, it's normal. Like,
Right.
sure. It's like, and it's not the GP's fault either. It's just like
No.
what they don't know. And so
Mhm.
I think a lot of people really give GPs a bad time around that. And obviously you're doing a fantastic job of helping them upskill within this area, because people expect them to be specialists when essentially they're general practitioners, particularly when it comes to blood work. So one, well done on starting to, I would say, educate that needed demographic to help people like myself to help understand that even though you're without disease doesn't necessarily mean you're unhealthy. And I think that's probably a big thing for most people. It's like, oh, they don't know what healthy feels like, or they don't know what optimal feels like, so they don't chase it, which I think is probably not ideal for population. Like, why wouldn't you want to feel 100%? And thankfully bloods can help, I would at least provide an insight into that.
Yeah, and blood is something that like hematology as a whole is not something you can like Google. It's not something you really want to Google. It's something that you like a lab never provides the value. Only the interpretation of the lab provides the value.
Mm,
That's where the value comes, because you don't know what you don't know when you're looking at a lab. I can look at a lab now and I already know what their questionnaire is going to say. It's actually how I coach.
mm,
I don't look at their questionnaire at all. I look at their blood work first so that
mm,
I don't have any bias even from their questionnaire. I
mm,
get both at the same time. So my team will send me their intake forms and their labs. I always look at labs first, and I even build the whole protocol before I look at the questionnaire. And then when I look at the questionnaire, I'm able to tease certain things out that might alter me to change my protocol, or if they're on certain medications or something like that, then I'll have to make alterations due to contraindications or whatever it's going to be. But I know what that questionnaire is already going to say just by looking at
mm,
blood work. Whereas a lot of people take a recipe book approach to blood work, and that it's a defeating tactic, because when you do that, it's like this marker was high, so take this supplement. This marker was low, so take that supplement. You can't do that, because there's a pattern and a relationship between biomarkers. And when you can identify a pattern, that is when you move from seeing a biomarker to seeing a physiologic state. You're able to actually look at something that's overtraining, or look at something that's fatty liver. You're able to look at a physiologic state rather than look at a biomarker. And that's a huge difference in coaching, because a biomarker could inform a recommendation, but a pattern will inform a protocol.
mm.
Those are two super different things. And that pattern, that relationship between biomarkers and the reflection of the physiologic state that person's in, even if they're all of them are within the normal reference range, that's blood work programming.
And when you say a pattern, would that mean to get multiple pieces of blood work done, or is it like a pattern within the blood work?
A pattern within the biomarkers and the relationship between the biomarkers. So you could have multiple forms of, multiple intakes of blood work, so that you're able to better learn that person over
Mm,
time, or AI is able to learn that person over time, whatever it's
mm,
going to be. But in terms of relationship between biomarkers, you're able to see certain things. So like if I see, for example, the cortisol to DHA ratio is above 0.09, I might look at that and be like, okay. But then if that's also combined with a lower testosterone and an elevated sex hormone binding globulin, now we're combining meta-analyses of overtraining into a biomarker pattern. It's like, all right, I got you. I know actually exactly what this is now.
Mm.
So you're able to actually tease out relationships between biomarkers that move from a recommendation based on the biomarker to a protocol based on the physiology. Another one that could be like kind of low hanging fruit here would be elevated alkaline phosphatase and low vitamin D with lower calcium or even a high calcium, depending on the situation. That would reflect an increased risk of stress fractures. So if I'm working with, I've had a lot of female runners, for example, who are long distance endurance runners, and they kind of come to me to try and regain their menstrual cycle.
Mm.
A very long distance runner, endurance, typical undereater because they want to perform well and be as light as possible. Because of that, they've lost their menstrual cycle and they want to figure out what to do. I've done that many times, but then that pattern reflects itself. You see stress fracture, stress fracture, stress fracture. That's a pattern that you'll most certainly see. In the world of fatty liver, you'll see elevated glucose, elevated GGT, elevated ALT, reduced testosterone. You'll see these patterns in fatty liver, and that reflects. You won't a blood profile doesn't tell you this person's got fatty liver. Like that doesn't happen. A physiologic state is only identified through a relationship of biomarkers, and then you can truly create a protocol to attack what's going on with that person rather than take the recipe biomarker only approach, which will typically always lead to
Mm.
false positives,
Mm.
really, in a way. If you chase only biomarkers, you're probably going to have something new to do every single
Mm.
time, which will have you leading down a road of false positives. But if you're chasing physiologic state, there's known end dates to where you are solving a true problem that isn't just subject to biometric variation like a lot of biomarkers are.
Hectic. Well, most people will know it's like this. Well, it's good to know one from the general population perspective that not many people would ever thought would have ever thought, relationships in blood work. It's just like, here's a number, is it within whatever it is? When it comes to learning this, where do you gain the knowledge from? Because obviously it's not something that, I would say readily available for the general population. Do you do lots of research within certain medical journals? How did you get your brain called it?
10 years of psychosis. That's yeah, that's
That's
the
how the great
protocol.
people are made.
Yeah, 10 years of psychosis and anxiety and demanding to know everything about it.
Not a bad, not a bad,
That's
not a bad thing.
that's my motivational talk
Yep.
for the day. No, for real, there's not like a super clean way to learn it, to
Mm.
be honest.
Mm.
There is research out there on states of overtraining. There's research out there on energy production. There is research out there on optimal hormone states. So this is all out there in
Mm.
actual literature. But I myself am synthesizing this into a more digestible course this year.
Yep.
So that will be out in
Yep.
2024, because it's different. There's not performance-based blood work out there.
No,
That's
because it's so
done.
like confidential.
Yeah, and it's very like niche even. Like it's a
Mm.
lot of people do not. But that's crazy to me. That actually makes me think about something. Um, so it's something that's giantly popular right now is longevity-based blood work for a good reason. People should have longevity-based blood
Mm.
work. However, I've always been a big fan of performance-based blood work because what is longevity blood work? A lot of longevity blood work is there is a known number that you should probably be within, and let's try to get in there and hope that you live. It's like let's hope this works out. You're in that number. Let's bank that you're gonna live. Okay. I've always liked performance-based blood work because it's not a number, it's a feeling. You are going to feel better when
Mm.
you do performance-based blood work. And that, by extension, in my humble opinion, will lead to longevity. You
We feel
you
like,
will be more confident, you will be leaner, you will be
mm.
stronger, you're gonna have more energy. Your health is based upon performance, which
Mm.
is a phenomenal metric to
Mm.
run by. So I've taken large liberty into connecting patterns to subjective symptoms and biomarkers to subjective symptoms. So we can bridge that like objective and subjective
Mm,
component that performance demands and not just chasing a number. And then when you do feel better and perform better, by extension, you are a healthier
mm.
person, period.
When you were, obviously, you've been in the industry for quite some time. How did you get your first athlete that, which then started to propel this pathway?
Yeah. So I totally blame a man named Scott Prohaska for making me insane. So I went to I was working at at Gold's Gym and creating stuff online. I've been making content online since I believe it was 2011.
Mhm.
I had a research review post on rhodiola rosea in 2011. And now
Pick your brain on
you
that
know,
scene.
yeah, yeah. 13 years later, companies come out with it and start promoting it. I was
Yeah,
like, I had you guys. I had you guys. Dan Garner, strength coach and nutrition specialist on Facebook. And the only person who liked it was my mom.
go,
But
Mum.
yeah, I digress. Good mom. Um, I uh I was creating content online as a personal trainer, and I've always kind of like thankfully back in the day I was never about quantity, I was always about quality because I had the mindset of you never know who is watching.
Mm,
And I've also always had the mindset of like I don't care about being popular, but I do care about being a leader.
mm,
I don't care if I have 100,000 or a million followers. That means nothing to me. I want to have a net contribution to science and not just consume science. And that means I want to do real stuff, create real ideas, have real innovation, and whoever follows me along that journey, phenomenal. Let's have a community and let's build this thing. But I'm never gonna make clickbait content.
mm,
So I even way back in the day, I already had that mindset of leadership and not popularity. And because of that, there was a guy named Scott Prohaska who saw my content. It was actually an article on energy system management for conditioning programming for hockey players. And he saw it and he's like, hey, I saw your stuff. It's excellent. I have 10 NFL and 10 NHL athletes. Would you come down to California this off season to help me run through the programming? And on the phone, I was acting like I was cool, and I was the opposite of cool. Like I'm already not cool. So then when I'm trying to be cool, I'm double not cool. So then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna, I'll check my schedule. We'll see. We'll talk cost. And then I hung up. I had no idea what to charge, and I was the least cool person in the world, and I celebrated. I could say that now. But so I go down there and instantly I have 20 pro athletes in person and I'm posting with these pros every single day.
mm,
I'm enhancing their performance.
mm,
Testimonials are rolling in, real things are rolling in, winning Super Bowls. Like if things happened, it was phenomenal. Things were going fantastic. But it was the first time I felt pressure to where it's like, XYZ is a free agent now. And then you're like, that next contract is going to be worth these 60, 70, 80 million dollars. And I play a big role in that, man. And then so my lack of confidence led to a purely objective approach. So
mm.
I don't want to just have ideas. I want to know.
You might need it
I
behind
want to
you.
know. I want to know. I want to have evidence for my ideas,
Mm,
and I want to be able to explain every detail on your program. Because if I can't, then it's not worth $60 million. It's not. So I need to make this objective. I need to make it physiologically based. And I
mm,
need to know what the hell I'm doing.
mm.
So that it was being baptized with fire. I instantly had 20 pro athletes
Yeah.
and I had to figure out a way for me to get them all results in a way that I could measure and control and keep no one's bias involved.
Mm,
And that just I was forced, I was molded into what I do now. It wasn't like a thing
mm,
when I was in Gold's Gym, I wasn't really interested in blood work. I was a personal trainer. I was known for bodybuilding and getting
mm,
people ready for bodybuilding shows and figure shows and bikini, and I was doing that quite well. And then it was only when I got to the pro athlete and like celebrity and CEOs too. They're data freaks. They want to know what's
yeah.
up. They're very type A. So I got molded into what I do now based on who I got exposed to earlier in my career.
Now, I could be wrong in this. My partner, he wanted me to ask, like, he said that you disappeared for like 2 or 3 years. Now, I'm assuming that's
Mhm.
possibly from social media. Was that your time to just nut down on your craft?
So I make content because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
If you look at my Instagram, it's you don't look at my Instagram and be like, man, that guy's trying to get popular.
You
That
read.
guy's creating some real clickbait shit. I see you. Like it's never it's screenshots
Yeah.
of studies and then my golden retriever. That's that's what my
Which is gorgeous,
Instagram
by
is.
the way.
Thank you. Lucy is a celebrity. Lucy has more followers than me at this point.
She has her own
But
Instagram page. Oh, I can up with it.
yeah, let's stop this podcast. Let's
Yeah.
get out of here. No, so I had like content is something I'm doing genuinely from the bottom of my soul. I'm doing it to help people. I'm
Mm,
doing it to get real information out there to cut through the
mm,
noise. That's what I'm going to continue to do. So when I left social media, the reason why I was able to do that, I left for 2 years or something like that,
mm,
because my money's never come from social media.
mm,
I can support my family just fine based on referrals. Like I'm already in the industry.
mm,
I am a coach first and an educator second. To this day,
mm.
I am somebody who actually does this stuff and not just talks about it. So when I left social media, like it was a thing kind of just because I wanted a break from it because
Yep.
it doesn't drive revenue to me.
Yep.
Like if somebody is getting ready for I've worked with two Marvel superheroes. They're not finding me on Instagram. That's not
Imagine
they're
that. Oh,
not.
this guy looks all right. Might it be him?
Yeah. Hey, yeah. Do you want to get me ready for the
Yeah.
next Avengers? Yeah. That doesn't happen. And neither does an athlete who trusts you with a UFC world title
Mm,
or an athlete who is a free agent is kind
mm,
of panicking right now because he doesn't know when he's going to get his next NFL contract.
mm,
That doesn't happen on social media. So like it was like shocking for some people that I left, but I really just it didn't nothing changed for
mm.
me. I just kept doing my job, which is what I still do. And when I came back to social media, it wasn't even for the health and fitness industry. It was because I had a daughter, and I wanted to be able to actually post about my daughter so
Mm,
that because my family, I have some family that live way out west in Canada,
mm,
people that live still here in Ontario, but they're many hours away. So I could continue to post about Hallie and they could keep up with Hallie
mm.
is my daughter. She's 2 years old. So they could keep up with her.
Yeah.
That's why I came back. And then I kind of just started posting again because I organically just want to help people.
Yeah.
So that is really I left because I wanted a break and it didn't matter. And then when I came back, it was for my daughter. And then just kind of organically, I just started posting again because I'd come across something cool and want to share it.
Yeah. I think it's a really important note, particularly the way that the world's going at the moment. Everyone, I would say, believes that they need to be on social media to, one, to be well known and to be able to be found as well. And they're not
Mm.
a specialist if they're not on social media. So if people are recommending someone, they'll most of the time these days, like, well, what's their Instagram or what's their Facebook? And then that unfortunately creates their perception of authority. So
Mm.
I think it's quite humbling to hear, particularly for people who aren't inclined to be on social media, or it's not something they what I would say want to do or be passionate about, that you don't have to be on such a platform to excel on the things that you want to do, regardless if that's something that does involve being quote unquote in the back end of limelight, but also when it comes to owning a craft, regardless of what that might be.
For sure. And to some organizations, that's a deterrent.
Mm,
It's a deterrent if you're out there making bold claims or clearly doing clickbait or creating content because
mm,
it's Monday instead of creating content because you're inspired to.
mm,
That there's such different things. Like anybody who follows me knows that there's no schedule. I
mhm,
might not post for 2 weeks, or I might post every day for 2 weeks.
mm,
It kind of just depends on what's going on and what I'm currently excited about. But like just for reference, for the timing of this podcast, literally yesterday, I was asked to do a presentation and be invited to an event where NASA and the Department of Defense are going to be there.
Oh yeah, just
My
casual Friday.
Right. Just a casual Friday, right? Compared to my following, people might be like, but there's guys out there with millions of followers. To those organizations, it doesn't matter. That stuff never matters. And even if you have a small following, I think people totally mistake too followers for customers. You can have a lot of followers who aren't customers. You can have a lot of followers who don't convert at a high percentage to whatever you're selling. It's super important to actually be very clear and almost niche with your approach so that the higher percentage of your followers are customers. That's a big part of it, because if I do something to amass a large following based on algorithmic programming, my post might be exposed to like 10% of that following. I don't know, 20%, something. It's a small percentage. And then, but if 80% of my following is there not to buy from me, then who knows what percentage of that algorithm is going to be allocated to my actual customers seeing what I want them to see versus the people just following me, kind of stealing that engagement from people who would have otherwise actually been a part of the community and the things I'm trying to build. And when you do the math, like, you really, if somebody wants to make a phenomenal living, they kind of only need 1,000 loyal followers. If you have 1,000 loyal followers paying you a
Yeah.
monthly fee, or 1,000 loyal followers buying your course, or 1,000, nobody can handle 1,000 clients. Imagine if you just had 1,000 people wanting you to coach them.
Well, not from
Like
a one-on-one perspective.
yeah, exactly. Or even online. Like that's a phenomenal amount of people to actually dedicate proper time to. It's unbelievable how many people think they need not 10,000, not 20, not 50, not 100. They think they need 400, 500, 600, a million. It's not even close to that number to get max, at least in my opinion. It's not even close to that number to reach financial and emotional fulfillment. That chasing those numbers is totally chasing the wrong metric, in my opinion.
You're 100% correct. Like my partner, he helps coaches become online coaches. And a lot of the, I would say, ones that have a higher client base have 1,500, 2,000 followers or so. And they're probably making maybe $10,000 more a month than someone that might have 10,000, because the people that actually are engaging with them are engaged people. And I think definitely the social media isn't always something that should be, you shouldn't base someone's self-worth or brain or knowledge on how many followers they have, because you're going to have yourself a huge injustice, because you might not listen to you because I always only got 1,000 followers, he mustn't be that good. And you're like, bitch, please. Like, I work with all these
Exactly. Yeah. And the people who are in the know are in the know. Like the organizations out there who make real futuristic differences, they know. And same with, like, if you're working with a professional athlete or actor or CEO, they also know. So what I'm saying is the people who matter will know. And the people who don't, they're probably not going to be your customer anyways.
Beautiful. Now I like to end the podcast with a couple of questions, but I wanted to add an extra one for you. One more so back to like optimizing human performance. If people don't get blood work, what do you think most people are deficient in and then should supplement? So as an example, a lot of people will recommend just off the bat of anything is like omega-3s and magnesium. So if you weren't to say, like, actually looking at someone's blood work, would you ever prescribe anything from I would say, a population perspective of having a deficiency?
Sure. I never think a multivitamin is a bad idea. Multivitamin, there is no nutrition without micronutrition. Like when you look at pathways, like if I want to convert glucose into pyruvate, I'm going to need magnesium. And then if I want to convert pyruvate into acetyl-CoA, I'm going to need B1, B2, B3, lipoate, and B12. Then I've got this acetyl-CoA, and it's going to be able to be converted into citric acid, but not if I don't have iron and glutathione. And then it's going to be converted into isocitric acid, but not if I don't have iron and glutathione again. And like that thing kind of just keeps going. There are micronutritional intermediates in all of these pathways. And that was the Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle, depending on whoever your professor was. But that is, those things all happen with micronutrition. If you want to make dopamine for reward, motivation, drive, focus, you're going to have either phenylalanine or tyrosine, and then that's going to need some B6 in order to be converted into dopamine. And then if you want to continue that chain, we're going to need some vitamin C and copper in order for it to be converted into either epinephrine or norepinephrine. If we want to do the same thing with serotonin, we do tryptophan, B6 serotonin. If we want to make thyroid hormone, we have tyrosine, selenium, zinc, thyroid. We like all of these things require micronutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have pathways based on rate of production and consistency of production. Those will be limited by the rate limiting factors. So if I do not have, for example, enough B vitamins for an increased rate of ATP production or a sustained ATP production, I will have fatigue that's biochemically sourced. So it has nothing to do with my emotional commitment. It has nothing to do with my psychological willpower. It has everything to do with biochemistry that is not supporting the goals that I want to do. And that's a really kind of shitty way to go about life, because you can want something so bad and not know that you don't have the biochemistry to support what you want. That sucks. So I'm a big fan of including some form of assurance in there, especially when it's non-toxic, which is a multivitamin. Not to mention that it is connected to mortality in unbelievably very well controlled studies. So I am a fan of multis, and those examples could go on for a million years too. I'm a big fan of magnesium. Magnesium, it has a lot of people actually quote that it has over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body. It actually has over 600. So yeah, it's literally doubled. And this is very well established. So it has over 600 enzymatic reactions in the body. There's 9 different steps that magnesium's involved in just to make anaerobic production of ATP. So if you're an athlete and you want to, or if you're just training, magnesium, again, is a rate limiting step to your ability to either produce ATP fast or sustain that ATP production. Magnesium also very important for blood sugar management, for sleep quality, so many different things, right? And multivitamins and magnesium, people are generally low in one or more of these, and they are provided in doses that are non-toxic. So you're able to consume these things and have a large health and performance and recovery benefit from them and not pay the price for it. Omega-3 is another one that you mentioned. Omega-3s, I sound like an infomercial salesman when I talk about omega-3s, but don't take my word for it. The literature is out there.
I've seen all the
Omega,
stuff you post on omega-3s, and it's
yeah. I do my own literature reviews on omega-3s, and I just don't get paid for them. I just read 10 studies and post it, and then just like, yeah, this is what it is. But like 60% of our brain is made of healthy fats, and 50% of that 60% is omega-3s. So in the same way that people eat protein to feed their muscle tissue, you need to start thinking about omega-3s to feed the brain tissue, for your synapses, for your neuronal connections, for neurogenesis. These things are that is omega-3 driven in a huge way. Omega-3s reduce inflammation. Omega-3s improve blood sugar control. The omega-3 to 6 ratio in the diet is quite predictive of fat loss and muscle gaining efforts. Omega-3s actually reduce lipopolysaccharides, which is an inflammatory gut bacteria. They support the mucosal lining within the gut. Their reach is very far and wide in the body, and 3 grams of EPA and DHA per day is the ideal dose. Going more is very contextually specific and generally unnecessary, but going less leaves more to be desired. So I'm a big fan of 1.5 grams of EPA and 1.5 grams of DHA. That is very well-rounded. If you do want more anti-inflammatory and heart health-based benefits, you would go a little bit more EPA. If you do want more brain-based benefits, you go a little bit more DHA, or you can kind of switch month to month if you want, or just keep it even all the time. But multi, magnesium, and fish oil are 3 really big ones. I actually think creatine could go on that list. I think that that's a very safe recommendation. That's been studied in
Mm.
many hundreds of studies. Has one of the greatest safety profiles of all time, and it is good for ATP production. So it's quite connected to just like strength, power, and muscle building. But when something's good for ATP production, it's good for ATP production. You see the benefits of creatine. They continue
Mm.
to come out in its antioxidative capacities and all of the different brain health benefits
Yeah, I
that it
think more
has in
for the brain is
yeah.
coming out at the moment. There's more research being, I would say, published around brain health and creatine.
Creatine like could be like it can we can call this thing like a vitamin, honestly. I know it's a wild I'm serious. I know that's a wild statement, but with how safe it is and how many different organ tissues it's involved in and how many different ways we could use more ADP to be converted to ATP in different areas of the body to support so many different metabolic processes that have many potential health benefits and no health risks. Freaking do it. That's a male, female, get it in you. I think that's another big one.
Mm.
So multi-fish oil, magnesium, and creatine are a few
Mm.
that immediately come to mind. Um, I used to be able to say vitamin D, but I don't really anymore. I think
Yeah.
that's over supplemented. So I actually back off on that until I see lab work now.
Do you have a preferred supplier for your supplements?
Hmm. I'll just kind of go with whoever has the best product for the specific context that I'm after.
Mm.
And there's a handful of companies that I really like. I like Momentous is fantastic. I like Thorn Research.
Mm.
I like Designs for Health, and they're a sport brand designed for sports. I'm a huge fan of Vitargo. I think that is the absolute best carbohydrate in the world. And I'm also a fan of Clean Athlete, which is
Okay.
Douglas Labs athlete brand. Those six, or if you're in Canada, ATP Labs is fantastic. So those seven are the ones that come to mind immediately for me. But when it comes to supplements, like the criteria at which one could use supplements is like number one, is it actually targeting the tissue or system that I want to target? So like if I'm after pure strength development, but then I'm taking beta alanine, beta
Mm.
alanine is a good supplement, but it's quite good for anaerobic bouts lasting more than 60 seconds.
Mm.
So if I'm a powerlifter, it's probably not the best supplement. It's not going to hurt anything, but if I'm on a limited budget, it's really not going to help. So you number one would be targeting the tissue or system that you're after. Number
Mm.
two, is it demonstrated for long-term safety? And number three, is
Mm.
it third-party tested? If you can answer those three questions, you're doing a great job.
So the normal gym bros that generally just lift weights, you probably shouldn't have in the pre-workout with beta alanine in it.
You can, it'll make you tingly.
Well, that's all they want.
Yeah.
I will have a ridiculous amount of caffeine with beta alanine each day. And I think it's more so to help his ADHD or ADD or something else like that to make him more focused individual.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. And the final three questions. First of all, before this is not part of the questions, are you drinking coffee from a tiki cup and then also water from your Yeti? Am I got that right? No, okay.
This is a tiki cup with a greens drink in it, and
Okay.
it's from Forbidden Island in Oakland.
Love that.
The
I was like,
light's not getting it.
I'm like, I
This
swear,
is
I'm drinking from two different cups.
no, this is a super special glass that only comes with the signature drink at Forbidden Island. Non-alcoholic, of course. I would not drink alcohol at a tiki bar, right? No,
That's a whole nother.
not 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 me at all. I wouldn't do that for ATP and laughs. Not at all. Um, so this is greens drink.
Yeah,
This is water.
love. Um, your if you obviously if you're on your deathbed, now this is very weird, but what would be your final meal? What's your favorite thing to eat?
Ooh, oh man, I'm so unprepared. I'm gonna answer this. I'm gonna answer this, and then I'm gonna message you on Instagram so mad that I didn't say something else. Um, I am a huge sucker for barbecue.
Mm,
So things like ribs and pulled pork and cornbread, I think
mm,
these are some of the greatest things.
mm,
And then for dessert, I've always been an ice cream guy, way more than I'm a cake guy. So
mm.
I'd probably have some barbecue and some ice cream, and I would probably have some tiki drinks with it and not be mad about it.
What flavor ice cream?
Oh, yeah, I'm still unprepared. Um,
You mustn't
you
like
ask
that much for
you
you.
can do you like how you asked me in-depth physiology questions, and then you asked me what flavor of ice cream? I'm like, oh fuck, Jesus, this is too much. Oh girl. I don't know. I'm gonna plead the fifth. I can't say.
Mint
I'm
chops,
not sure.
so I'll just go with that.
This is too hard. This is too hard. You stumped me. You
That's
stumped me. I'm no good.
title of the podcast. Jess stumped Dan Garner.
Damn it.
The way that you thought.
I'm leaving social media. Forget this. I'm
Um,
out.
what book are you currently reading? If you read books and not just news or medical journals.
I'll say two things.
Mm.
The main way in which I educate myself these days is actually coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I've done so many courses and I've read so many books
Mm.
that the most insightful ways in which I learn now are the context that I'm presented with. So someone will say, hey, I've got a title fight in 8 weeks. Figure
Mm.
me out. Or, hey, I've got an acting role in 12 weeks and my body needs to transform into this character. Figure me out. That's when I'm given a context and an end date and a set of variables, that's when you're really forced to learn. So that's when I'll dive into the research on something totally new, learn something totally new. I very much learn through case study now.
Mm.
With that said, a friend of mine did just give me Outlive by Peter
I've
Itzia.
heard of this book. Yeah.
Yeah. So she just gave me this not long ago. I don't know, maybe it was only like a week or two ago, and that's the one that I'm getting into right now.
And I don't know if you watch television or movies. Greatest movie of all time for you? Last question.
Oh God.
Stumping him.
This podcast is tough. um okay. I've got a few. But they're not like the ones that a lot of people like love, but they're mine.
Mm-hmm.
Um I really like a lot of people. I think Shutter Island is super underrated with Leonardo DiCaprio. I think that's an amazing psychological thriller that I would love to just keep watching all the time. I think Interstellar was a phenomenal movie. I really liked Interstellar. I think those two are fantastic. Um, and then Baby Dan from like 1993. I'm gonna say Mortal Kombat. I'll never not like Mortal Kombat. When the Sega game came out and the movie came out, actually, I did 3 tours of Australia. I did 3 years in a row, doing seminar tours in Australia, and I haven't come back. I was gonna go again until COVID hit, and then I haven't come back since. Got blasted everything, and then I just got out of the seminar rhythm. But in my slides, I had Mortal Kombat characters in it. That's how much of a dork I am. So I'll say all 3 of those movies.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Love. Well, once again, I want to say obviously very huge thankful for jumping on. Sorry again about the technical glitch at the beginning. Now where can people find you? Obviously, you're not a social media person, but what's your current business that you're launching? And obviously where can they find you?
Yeah. So for not being a social media person, I still post a few times a week. It's just not pretty. But I promise you it's very informative. It is at Dan Garner Nutrition on Instagram is where you can find me. And that's where I post a few times every single week, and it's very, very in-depth content. That's the place to find me on social media. As far as current business ventures, rapidhealthreport.com is where I'll do full diagnostic analysis of blood, urine, saliva, stool. That is an extremely premium product that's typically reserved for athletes, CEOs, and actors. And then biomolecularathlete.com is a business I started with Dr. Andy Galpin, where him and I provide educational courses. So we have a course currently out right now called the Biomolecular Toolkit, where we provide training and nutrition protocols that we use with our athletes in an educational format with the tools to go along with it. And we have 2 more courses planned for this year, a blood work course, and then a identifying the root cause of your fatigue course. So you can solve it from the ground up. So You can find us at biomolecularathlete.com for education, Rapid for comprehensive analysis, and then a project I'm currently extremely excited about, which is really a dream come true of mine, is at vitalityblueprint.com. A lot of people listen to me on podcasts, talk about blood work, but I can't, because of who I work with and the attention that's required for me to give to that person. What I do is not very scalable. It's simply not. So I've spent the past year plus getting up, you see the hours that I get up in the morning, developing an algorithm to make my brain, to have a second brain and have that in an algorithm that automatically interprets blood work and generates lifestyle, nutrition, training, and supplement protocols from it. That is actually coming, depending on the release of this podcast. I will be taking in the initial cohort on January 29th. So that is a lifelong dream of mine, to make scalable premium performance-based blood work and make scalable what I've dedicated my entire adult life to. And that's true blood work interpretation at scale with a holistic programming output of lifestyle, nutrition, training, and supplements. So those three businesses are what I'm most excited about right now.
How does it feel to have something like that so close to launch?
Phenomenal. It's unbelievable, really. It's so cool, and what it's become, how many employees it already has, the beta testing group, what it is, what it produces. I truly, it sounds hokey, but I truly believe that that's why I'm on this earth, is to change blood work. There's so much that needed to be changed, and someone that needed to put 10 years into that change. And I believe I did that. And I would not enter this market if I didn't think it was the best thing. There are competitors out there, but there is no one who does what I do. Like, I can say that very confidently. And having it ready is truly a dream come true. And right now, I almost just kind of feel like grandma at like Christmas dinner, because she's like, she's spent all day making Christmas dinner, and now she's serving it and waiting to see everyone's face. Yeah, yeah. Do you guys, what do you guys think? That's kind of what I'm at right now with Vitality, is an unbelievable amount of gratitude and happy anticipation for it to enter the market and show people what's up.
I'm thrilled to hear that, because having someone express their, I would say, excitement for something that they've worked on for so long, and it can't not warm you. So well, first of all, thank you for creating such an incredible product. I know I've already sort of sussed it out. And once again, thank you for jumping on the podcast. I've really appreciated this hour with you. And yeah, I'll probably chat to you on social soon.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. See ya.